Welcome to our channel. Please subscribe to our channel. Enjoy watching the first story. My wife, who is 33 years old, was an expert shopper. It helps that her grandmother and mother were very materialistic people. While maintaining a budget, she would hunt for the perfect sale, which is why I, at 37, didn't usually jump up to go with her, because she could be out for 6 hours or more. She would go out once a week every Saturday, leaving the house by 6:00 a.m. She'd go to Saturday's market, then head to the mall, have lunch, and probably shop more. We were married for 8 years, and throughout that time, she had the habit of doing this. She occasionally took our 5-year-old daughter with her. My wife was a consistent light in my life, and I didn't know she didn't deserve my trust. She started taking our daughter less and less often, leaving the house without waking her up or giving her the choice. I asked her why, and she said she could get back sooner, without bringing her along, because a lot of the time she would start to complain and get tired long before my wife was ready to come back home. I suppose that was a reasonable explanation, but my daughter and I were both disappointed because she enjoyed those trips with her mom. Our daughter actually started asking her each time if she could go with her, and she'd say no. Each time, she'd do something else with her the next day or bring home something nice for her, but it wasn't the same. I let it go for a while, but eventually felt like I had to say something. I confronted her and told her she needed to take her with her that Saturday. She was not happy. I couldn't believe how inconvenient it was for her. She started to accept it and actually did follow through. But that Sunday, she went out alone. Usually, we all had family time and practiced meditation. Our girl always turned it into a game of peeking without getting caught. When my wife got back, she was really happy, like everything was fine. Then my daughter asked a question that led to the discovery of what was really going on. She asked her mom if she met the man with the puppet today. My wife forced a laugh and said no. He's only at the market on Saturdays. I asked who this was, and before my wife responded, our daughter said he was the man Monty kissed yesterday. I looked at her with wide eyes. She knew we had to talk. I excused myself to another room and waited for my wife to set up our daughter with toys before joining me. I questioned her until she was blue in the face, but she couldn't convince me her lies were true. She tried telling me our daughter was talking about something else, but I knew her speaking capabilities were pretty accurate. She even looked at my wife like she was going to be in trouble with Daddy. She knew it was wrong, and she wanted me to know. So my wife eventually came clean. She said he was a nice guy that she got close to over the years she'd been going to the market. He liked her more than friends, and she didn't want to break his heart, so she started giving him kisses. I didn't think there was any way she could believe this was okay. I told her she betrayed my trust by doing this, even by being friends with this guy without telling me. I'd like to know who she's involved with, even if only for safety's sake. Now I was suddenly aware of a guy she'd gotten to know for years, introduced to her daughter and kissed. I looked her straight in the eye and asked her if she ever slept with this man or anyone else. She blushed hard, looked away, and told me no. How much more obvious could it have been that she was lying to me? I stared at her, but she only tried asking if we could leave the room now, and I said no. I told her to tell me the truth because her whole body looked like she was lying. Her mouth got really dry, and she started to dry heave. She excused herself to her bathroom and threw up. I told her she needed to get it off her shoulder so she could feel better, but she pretended not to have anything to say. I told her I didn't want her to go to Saturday's market anymore, and she lost it. She said this was one of her greatest joys in life, and I told her that she spoiled it for herself because she started kissing an older guy. I wondered if she said older to try to get me to let it go, like I'd picture an old lonely man. I wasn't a fool, so for a whole month, she didn't go anywhere over the weekend. Finally, she made an excuse to go out, but she took her daughter with her to help convince me she wasn't up to no good. They came home with groceries or other stuff that proved they weren't at Saturday's market. I hated that this had become an issue between us. Now every time she left, I wondered if she was seeing Mr. Kisser. On the first date, she didn't offer to take our daughter. I followed her. She didn't go to Saturday's market, but she did go to someone's house. Before I got confirmation, I knew this was AP's house. I could feel it in my bones. It was like my wife's energy and emotion were contagious to me. I knocked on his front door after my wife went inside. AP answered it, and I asked him why I saw my wife just come inside. My heart was pounding out of my chest as I pictured this guy meeting my daughter. He looked young and confused, but before he could ask me anything, I asked if he was the puppet guy at Saturday's market. He covered his mouth for a second and asked me if I was her husband. I said yes and yelled my wife's name. She came out, and he told her to leave. Then he told me she introduced herself as a widow. I felt like my heart stopped beating permanently, and I was only surviving off air in my still blood. My wife came rushing out like she had a right to be mad, rushing past me. I followed her. She frantically tried to get in her car, but I grabbed her keys from her and ran to my car, locking the doors. She watched helplessly as I took her house key off before giving them back. She told her parents I kicked her out for no reason, so they let her stay with them and arranged to have a truck come get her stuff. They came over to visit with our daughter and asked me what really happened. I told them the truth, and they must have made my wife's life at their house a living hell, because every day she told me she hated me for telling them what happened. She moved out in just 5 weeks, opting to take turns sleeping on different friends' couches rather than stay under the roof. The divorce went in my favor, and my wife is at least partially involved with her daughter. It sounds like you came out on top of this experience, taking what you could learn from it and tossing the rest. Don't look back, and like you said, find the happiness and hope in every day you have to be alive and make choices. Choose to eat healthily, spend time with your loved ones, work out to keep your body fit, and do what you love. Work on those habits you haven't thought of as sabotaging your life's progress. Expect nothing and accept everything you get in life with a grateful heart. Or kissing him like it was okay shows she did not have the maturity or level of thinking required to have a long-lasting, sacred relationship. It's much worse that she introduced her daughter to this outsider and herself as a widow. I wish you the best of luck moving forward. Remember, life is full of challenges and opportunities for growth. Focus on your well-being, your daughter's happiness, and building a bright future for both of you. You've shown strength in dealing with a difficult situation, and I hope you find the happiness and peace you deserve in the days ahead. Second story. I, a 34-year-old male, was dating my fiancée, who was 32, for 3 years before I proposed. She grew up in a very sheltered household, so I was the first man she dated and slept with. We grew up in the country away from it all, so we felt old-fashioned compared to how a lot of people lived their lives. But that's how we liked it. Our families were proud, and there wasn't any drama. After she said yes, we started looking for a house to buy. It figures that the first house we looked at was being shown by an extremely attractive man. And I say that as heterosexually as possible. I wasn't worried at first. I thought my wife to be loved and respected me. But when I saw the way she looked at this stranger, it was like she saw all the future possibilities if she married him instead. She asked him lots of questions about his personal life and seemed completely intrigued that life brought them together. I felt left in the dust. This couldn't have been all in my head. She wasn't just being friendly. When we left the house tour, I asked her what that was all about, and she played dumb. She acted like I didn't just see her flirting with this guy like her life depended on it. I told her what I saw, and she said I must be an extremely jealous person who had seen something that wasn't happening. Well, I told her we weren't buying that house because I didn't like that guy, and I wasn't comfortable with her seeing him ever again. Since that day, she started asking me more questions about her appearance and what my goals were in life. I think she started wondering if I was good enough to be with her. She started talking about how great it would be to make as much money as a realtor, and to be able to be dressed up and just show houses. It seemed so easy. I told her I didn't want her to work at the same realty place as that guy. Little did I know, she was already texting him and applied to the company. 2 weeks later, she told me she was hired as a bank teller. She started going to work each day, and I didn't even go to the bank she was supposedly working at until a week after she started. I later figured out that she wasn't there. I called her to see where she was, and she answered in a cheery voice. But when I told her I was looking for her at the bank, she panicked. She started stuttering and said she was out to lunch. But I told her not to lie to me. I said I already went inside, and no one knew who she was. She was speechless. She finally said I had to promise not to be mad, and she told me she actually became a realtor. Of course, she was working at the realty place I told her not to. Then, before I even admitted how mad I was, she told me we were invited to AP's house for dinner, the man that showed us the first house. I felt like I was losing my fiancé, and there was nothing I could do but play along. She swore they were only friends, and I didn't have any concrete proof otherwise. I wouldn't be able to divorce her without knowing I wasn't jumping to conclusions. So we went to his house. It was a Bax mansion, and it made me sick. There was another couple invited over, so at least it wasn't just the three of us. But he mostly spoke to my wife all night long. When I couldn't hold it anymore, I went to the bathroom, and when I came back out, they were gone. I asked the other couple where they went, and they said outside, but they didn't look certain. I went outside and started speed walking around the house to find them, but I couldn't. I started yelling like a crazy person and felt like my woman shouldn't have put me in this situation. When I went back inside, I must have looked panicked. I think the girl felt bad for me because she said she saw them go upstairs. I took 3 steps at a time and found that only one bedroom door was locked. I banged on it, demanding to see my fiancé, and it was about 30 seconds until he opened the door. All he said was he was sorry. Old habits die hard when it comes to locking the door. But a few things crumbled like a pie's crust. First off, he had my fiancée's shade of lipstick on his lips. Her face was bright red, and she was trying to casually stand and hold her wine glass like she wasn't just caught in the act. AP called for the other couple as if he was upset with them for failing to guard the stairs like he asked. But it turned out they left. I walked into the room and sniffed around, even smelling my fiancée's neck. She held her breath, said I was being weird, and asked me if we could go back downstairs now. I ignored her and continued looking for clues. She stammered and said he was just showing her the space in his walk-in closets. I looked into her shameful eyes and asked how she had the nerve to lie to me, disobey me, and sleep with the guy I wanted her to avoid. At that moment, I knew she wasn't worth my commitment. As if all the things leading up to this weren't fishy enough, I told her she wasn't the hot stuff she thought she was, and she deserved to live a meaningless life without the sacred relationship between a man and a woman that I tried to have with her. AP was super quiet and awkward. He looked completely different from the confident selling man my fiancé was so infatuated with. I got in his terrified face and yelled that I should beat him to a pulp for taking my woman from me. He was so scared that he already called the police to request an officer's presence. I left before they got there. AP didn't realize that by doing that, he provided me with a police report. I obtained a copy of where they each admitted they were having an affair, and I caught them. I was able to use this to publicly shame them. They became the faces of sleazy salespersons you didn't want to trust around your own spouse. They lost their jobs and family support, while I dodged a lifelong mistake. It still freaks me out that she started an affair with the first attractive man she came in contact with as an engaged woman. I am so glad you didn't marry this girl. She was obviously not ready to commit to you for the rest of her life. It seems to me she never had to face temptation before this. When she realized just how big the world was, her ego grew with it, while her morals all but disappeared. If she really was having an identity crisis, or didn't think she was ready to be married, or even thought she needed time to explore the world on her own, she should have communicated her feelings to you. No matter how hard it is for someone to have that talk with another person, it's necessary. It's a part of growth, learning responsibility and empathy for others. You would hate to be cheated on more than dumped, so do the hard thing and have the talk. You might be surprised what someone is willing to do to work on themselves or make things better. Thank you for sharing your story. I wish you all the best in moving forward and finding someone who values and respects you as much as you deserve. Remember, relationships should be built on trust, communication, and mutual respect. Don't settle for anything less. Third story. My girlfriend, 23, and I, 24, have been together for 3 years, and everything seems splendid in our relationship. We had the financial freedom to travel and enjoy our lives, partly because we got a discount on rent from my uncle, who was our landlord. However, things took a turn on my girlfriend's 23rd birthday, when I decided to surprise her with tickets to a concert by an artist I'll refer to as AP, someone she had admired for a long time. My girlfriend had always been a big fan of AP's music, and it had a profound impact on her self-confidence. She often wrote about him in her journal and would immerse herself in his music during tough times. I respected her admiration for him, but it became evident that her obsession with him was affecting our relationship. She would leave arguments to listen to his music and seemed to prioritize him over me at times. On the way to the concert, it was clear that my girlfriend was determined to catch AP's attention. She dressed provocatively, and it felt like her sole mission was to make herself noticeable to him. As AP took the stage, I noticed that he couldn't take his eyes off her. He made gestures to get her attention and even touched her hand during his performance. It was obvious that she was living her dream in that moment. During one of the last songs, AP held her hand and signaled for her to come backstage. In a matter of seconds, she was given a backstage pass by security, and I was left in disbelief. I tried to convince her to leave with me, but she insisted on staying, claiming it was the most exciting thing to ever happen to her. I asked her if she was leaving me for him, and she avoided a clear answer. Feeling hurt and betrayed, I left the venue without her and returned home alone, a 2-hour trip. A week later, my girlfriend called me in tears. She confessed that she had gone backstage with AP, spent time with him, consumed drugs and alcohol, and ultimately had sex with him. She was given a document to sign binding her to secrecy about the encounter. I ended the relationship immediately, believing that there was no way to salvage our trust and commitment. She tearfully recounted the details of her encounter with AP, including a luxurious breakfast the following morning. Her parents eventually found out about her actions and kicked her out of their house. She was left homeless and pregnant, despite her reservations about having children. She found someone willing to support her and potentially raise the baby. The child may have been put up for adoption. In the end, my girlfriend's obsession with AP led to a series of disastrous decisions that completely altered the course of her life. You've been through quite the ordeal. You were being kind and sweet to your significant other by getting her concert tickets to her favorite artist, only for her to betray you and literally break up with you that very night. It doesn't matter who AP was, your girlfriend was definitely in the wrong. She was a naive woman who chose to give up everything for what she thought was her greatest fantasy. All that turned out to be was the start of her destruction and unstable life. I'm proud of you for sticking to your gut and refusing to stay with this woman. I know it must have been hard, and you probably considered just letting it go so you could continue on the expected path, but you did the right thing by refusing. The only way to have a genuine relationship full of unconditional love is to commit yourself to only that person. Relationship issues aside, infidelity is not the answer. She needed to get her priorities straight and learn who she wanted to become. Thank you for sharing your story, and I wish you all the best as you move forward. You have the strength to find a better partner who respects and values you. Fourth story. My wife, 27, and I, 29, live in a small apartment complex where bug control visits occurred twice a year. These visits made us anxious as we valued our privacy and cleanliness. I've been known to be particular about my space, and my wife often referred to me as having OCD. If things didn't go according to plan, I'd get quite agitated. My wife, on the other hand, was understanding and tried to provide a sense of stability. On the morning of the bug control visit, I woke up in a panic at 5:00 a.m., unable to fall back asleep knowing a stranger would soon be in our home. My wife woke up at 7:00 a.m. and began our usual chores and breakfast. After eating, I worked on my computer for a few hours, and by 12:00 p.m., I assumed the bugman wouldn't be coming that day, so I began to relax. Feeling tired, I decided to rest on the couch, falling into a deep sleep. I didn't wake up until 5:00 p.m. My wife then informed me that the bugman had come while I was asleep. This made me uneasy, and I asked her about his visit, wondering why she hadn't woken me up. She appeared happy but evasive in her responses, claiming he had only been there for a few minutes, and they didn't say much. Her reluctance to provide details raised suspicions. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, possibly because my wife had cheated on me in the past during a break in our relationship. I decided to investigate further and went outside to take out the trash. That's when I found a folded note beside our apartment door. It read, "To whoever is snoring on the couch in this apartment right now, I know my bug-spraying coworker went into your apartment and spent hours with your wife. You'll have to get her to admit what she did with him. Signed, a concerned fellow." I was shocked and confronted my wife with the note. Her response was initially caught off guard, but I wanted her to explain what had happened. She seemed to be in a state of denial, believing she had successfully concealed her infidelity. When I presented her with the note, her demeanor changed drastically. She admitted that the bugman had been in our apartment for an extended period. I'd asked her directly if she had slept with him, and her blush revealed the truth. I couldn't contain my anger and told her to leave. I began tossing her belongings into the hallway, and she was more concerned about her future than our broken relationship. She made phone calls attempting to secure a new place to live. While she spoke with her relatives, I continued clearing the apartment of her possessions. Eventually, I pushed her out into the hallway with her phone charger still dangling from her phone. Her relatives arrived initially angry with me, but then chastising her for her actions. They made her write me an apology note and slide money under the door as restitution. I don't know where she went after that, but she had to face the consequences of her unfaithfulness that day. She believed she could get away with cheating, but she was wrong. Afterward, I decided not to rush into a new relationship and bought a puppy. This little companion became my source of love and support. I'm sorry that you had to endure a relationship with your wife, even after her first instance of infidelity. It seems she believed she could repeat her actions without consequences. Please don't let this experience deter you from future relationships. Take the time you need to heal, understand yourself better, and know what you want in a partner. You made the right choice by ending a relationship that lacked trust and commitment. Thank you for sharing your story, and I wish you all the best as you move forward. You have the strength to find a better partner who respects and values you. If there's anything specific you would like to know or discuss further, feel free to let me know.